validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt up on the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher constantly, making my own climb. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. Whoa. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield. Standing on higher ground, where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds. Raising the bar, breaking ground. I'm not just living, I'm manifesting my vision. Cutting through limitations with surgical precision. My expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.
Oh shoot. That was a delay. And then I was almost ready to hit the off button. I was sitting over here looking like, no, I don't want to push that button. We just got the show started. How y'all doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to this and that. I'm your host, Xander, where we're talking about this, that, and everything in between. Um, man, it has been a stressful day, but that's okay. We got it. I got most of the things done today that I was trying to accomplish. Yeah, but I'm here almost 15 minutes after when we thought we were going to be here. But, like I tell you guys on a regular basis that, we're live 7 nights a week. We do not let the sun rise without going live, but we don't always start on time. And that's why we ask you guys to like, subscribe, mash the reaction buttons, hit that notification button so that you know that we're going live when we do go live. And then go and double check what we got going on the membership. We've got daily releases right now, at least right now, on all of the content and information that we've been talking about so that you guys kind of have a better understanding of what to do and how to do it. We just covered Roth IRAs and 401ks and stuff yesterday. That is in the membership right now. And we gave you guys, I just found out, just most recent updates, they're putting Donald Trump on the $100 bills and they are putting Donald Trump on a commemorative coin as the 250th anniversary scenario. We have not heard any new information about the $250 bill, but we do see that they are talking about producing a Donald Trump coin. I think it might be a quarter, or I don't know, a quarter or a whole dollar or something like that. So I think they're going to be doing that coming soon. So that's going to be one of those collectibles that people are going to hoard. And then in 5 or 10 years, especially after Donald Trump dies, anybody who has that coin may be able to flip that coin with coin collectors in 5 or 10 years down the line, which it would be an investment for people who are capable of buying and holding. But for people who need money to wash their clothes, getting $10,000 worth of Donald Trump coins ain't going to get your laundry clean. So it is what it is. Um, I will be out and about tomorrow, double checking those gas prices to be able to verify with you guys how the gas prices are changing right now with conflicts. Because, like I said before, it should uh, have stabilized. I want to say stabilized, but it shouldn't be going much higher than what it is right now because it should have been around $4 to $5 a gallon because of what was going on in June. And since what was going on in June went back to what's going on right now, um, it is an observation that it should still be hovering around $4 to $5 a gallon. And since we're towards the end of, and I say the end, but we're like the middle of July, and we've got like a month left before school starts, but we're towards the end of what summer is supposed to be, even though the hottest part of the year is going to be August and September. We have recognized the capabilities to work it into a um what was I gonna say? The scenario where um the gas prices would have naturally gone down, but they're not going down because we're in conflict. So instead of it continuously spiking, because it would have naturally gone down due to the normal usage of American population, it's actually going to plateau and level off and kind of be at an unnecessary high during the decline fall term where we would likely have seen a natural decline. So, we're just going to be dealing with that in August, September, and partially October. I was claiming that they might double back and work on a resolution um, in October, but I'm only speculating here. Uh, we're going to be paying attention to everything that's happening, and you're going to see some updates on some stuff because we have different topics every night of the week. We have Sundays we do questions and comments from the fans. Every Monday we have a different topic. Because Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays are business and politics. Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays are business and politics. And what that means is that Mondays we talk about how politics negatively impacts your ability to make, save, and invest money. Then yesterday, we give you guys information about how to make money, save money, budget money, earn money, different ways to look at money, different ways to make decisions around money so that you're not running out of money. So, because I mean, the money that you earn, the faster you decide to spend it, the less you have. So, especially when you're living on a budget or fixed income of some sort, the observation is that you must, in some situations, delay certain expectations so that you can maintain an available level of capital to cover other things, right? So we talk about those things. Then Wednesdays today we talk about different countries around the world that you can invest in and potentially live in, and improve your standard of living, or at least improve your investment opportunities with international investments. Then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday we give you guys information about self improvement, personal development, relationship topics, socialization is negotiations, building your brand, and then raises, promotions, uh, retirement, forced retirement, severance packages, terminations. And then after that, we give you guys a lot of information about building your 20 and 30-year plan, um, primarily because you must know where you need to be at in the future. And in order for you to get there, you need to start making a plan today as to what all you need to accomplish to get there. Now, while plans change, if you do have a fundamental blueprint on how you're going to get to where you're going to get, as things improve, you can pivot in a more productive way so that your improvements are more capitalized and scalable so that you can see more growth. You should be in a situation where 20% of work gets 80% of results versus 80% of work getting 10% of results. Because you can spend all day doing one task that might be a reasonable task, but is an exhausting, time consuming task when you could have done 20 small tasks and accomplish way more stuff in the same period of time, where you still might have 21 tasks to do, but you decided to do the one big task instead of doing the 20 small tasks, and ultimately making a huge progressive gain on getting all the small stuff out of the way first. I was telling people that I know as of recent, it's like, you can start doing a big task, but take breaks from the big task and do the small task. That way you get the small tasks out of the way. You can use taking a break from the big task as an excuse to go and tackle all of the small tasks so that you can get back to the big task so that you're still progressive and getting things done, where the stuff that needs to get done, it stays done. Repetitive things that needs to be redone gets done on a repetitive motion on a system where nothing is left undone for weeks or months just because you're hovering on one task. You should never be hovering on one task. You start it, you finish it. You know, you should start it and do it for 1 or 2 hours, take a break, and then say, "Oh, I'm gonna get back to it tomorrow." I mean, that's the only like major tasks. But truth be told, if you know how to plan your lifestyle, if you've got nothing else to do, that should be the only thing you're doing until it gets done, right? Because if you spend more time laying in bed watching TV and not accomplishing shit, you spend less time being productive in your life, accomplishing the things that you need to be successful, right? And then what ultimately happens with that is that it puts the burden on somebody else to make you successful if you're not going to fall off because you're not being responsible for yourself. And believe it or not, no matter how people lie to you and say that that's okay, no matter how old you get, when you become an unnecessary burden on somebody else, they're not okay with that. They can lie to you and say that they are, but they're not okay with that, right? You have the capabilities to do more and be better, and you choose not to. You choose to deliberately put yourself in a position to be a codependent when you didn't have to be. And that is an unhealthy scenario to be in because the other person is ultimately being psychologically and emotionally and physically used because you could be doing more for yourself and you're choosing not to do it. This is one of the reasons why you have friction in households when you're having roommates, when you're with family, when you're in relationships where somebody's not carrying their weight. Those are the small, less significant, more meaningful debates that you have in a household because one of you is doing way more unnecessarily than the other, which is why when we have these discussions about the 50-50 logic, it's not 50-50. It's never 50-50. One person always outpaces somebody else based on their ethics, based on their desires, based on their motivation to succeed. One person is going to outpace the other person on a regular basis. The only difference is that person one might outpace person two on certain things. And if you have a reasonably balanced relationship, person two will outpace person one on other situations. But if you have an unhealthily unbalanced relationship, person one always outpaces person two, and person two never brings up a third of the slack. And in those situations, person one is always overwhelmed, burnt out, and stressed out. So it's never going to be 50-50. It's like 70-30, 80-20, 90-10. Those are the kind of relationships that exist. And usually the person that does the least in a relationship wants the most authority. Some who don't want authority don't mind turning their brains off and doing absolutely nothing. But usually the person that does the least and impacts the relationship the least wants the most authority to say that we're equal. Well, no, the person that does the most stuff to make this relationship succeed, the person that does the most stuff to make the household stay afloat and stay organized and stay successful, that's the one that's supposed to have the most authority. Which is why we say if there's two people there and there's out of the two decisions, if there's a hung jury, the person with the most effort into the situation, the person with the most time and sweat and blood and tears and financial investment involved in the situation should have the authoritative vote. So if that person says yes, yes is yes, and if that person says no, no is no, because the other person who's not bringing up the rear, who's not carrying their weight, can't say that they're entitled to equal authority over a situation where they are failing. That's not fair. That's not a fair assessment. Because if the roles were reversed, person two wouldn't say that it's fair that person two is doing all of this shit for person one and person one is in charge. They would disagree with it. So you can't have it where when you're not in charge, that you're unhappy about not being in charge when you didn't earn the right to have that authority. Now, today, it's probably going to be a short show today. I understand that. We're going to be sitting over here talking about a new country, and it's going to be in Africa. So Michael says, if I have more at risk, then yes, I'm in charge. Period. Oh, if I have more risk, if I invested more into this situation, because you got a lot of times, like, okay, for example, take on last Sunday, we had the woman that was talking about how she was doing the most work and bringing back the money to take care of the house. The man was doing the stay at home stuff. If while she's at work, he's paying all the bills, he's investing in things, he's calling in the maintenance guys, he's knocking back the car repairs, and if they ended up with kids, he's taking care of the kids, he's going to the schools, he's doing the PTAs, he's making the kids lunches, getting their school clothes with the wife's money and all of this other stuff, where really the only thing that the wife is doing is bringing back the money. Yes, when it comes down to how much something costs, the wife would have had the majority authority over the situation because she's the only one bringing in money. But when it comes down to whether or not we should do something within the structure of this environment, because the husband has the house organized, until the price comes up, he should have the most authority because he's making sure the kids go to school. He's making sure the kids get what they need. The wife would be bringing back the money, but the husband would have been doing all the effort after the money came in. So the authority comes into where the effort comes in at, and that's a reasonable balance. So yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree that in a relationship where the parties are mutually balanced towards one another, that would make sense. It says, no, sounds like a good relationship. I can wear her dress. Well, I know you're joking on that dynamic, but truthfully, I use that as an example because if you flip the script and the man was working and he was bringing back the money and the woman was at the house and she was managing the bills and getting the car repair and fixing stuff around the house and cutting the grass and taking care of the kids and doing all the stuff that needs to be done around the house. And then all the husband was doing was bringing back the money. And whenever she needed protecting, he would be protecting her. At the end of the day, when it came down to how much something cost, he would be the one that would decide how much it would cost. But if something needed to be replaced, she would be the one to decide this needs to get replaced. I've been here. I'm using the stuff. It's broken. It's not functional no more. It doesn't have the purpose that we had it for. We need to get another one. And now the husband decides how much he's going to spend on it. It's the same thing. It's not just, oh, the vacuum cleaner's broken or the dishwasher's broken or whatever the case may be. You know, it could be a stroller. It could be a walker. It could be anything. It could be a door hinge. It could be anything that because she's using it, it's no longer functional for what she's using it for, which prevents her from performing her tasks effectively. Just like I don't own the company, but if the equipment I'm using in the restaurant doesn't work, I tell the manager this needs to be replaced because I can't do my job. I can't do my part until you replace the equipment that I'm using. I have the authority to say, well, just needs to be done. And likewise, that is a mutual authority. So yes, whatever you're investing in the situation, because it doesn't always have to be a financial investment. It can be an investment of effort, but it has to be an extensive quantity of effort that is supported by the equivalent monetary contributions. And I understand that that's comparing apples to oranges. How much is childcare worth versus a $20 or $30 an hour job? I understand that. You know, she can underprice uh, 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 her value or over she could overprice her value and say, well, I'm worth $30 an hour, so because I'm here all day taking care of the kids, I'm doing more. Or her efforts could be undervalued, like, well, technically housekeepers and stuff like that get paid like $10, $15 an hour, and say, well, shit, you should be doing twice as much. But the fact is that how meaningful is it to the household of what you're doing and how the household is improving based on the decisions that you make? That is what determines the value of what you're doing. And then when I bring the money, I decide how much I'm going to spend on what you tell me needs to be paid for. And that would be a working situation. He says, if she's working and I'm the stay at home, she's coming home to sex and cook dinners. Well, of course, clean clothes, kids chained, exactly. And that's what men ask women to do, to have. That's called ultimately having the house organized, so that when the primary breadwinner comes back with the money, that the primary breadwinner doesn't have mental stress after they finish working, because all of the mental stress has been removed from the household before the primary breadwinner gets home from the house. And that would be the responsible thing to do. So then what we say, well, what about the person that's at the house? The person that's at the house is on the clock 24/7. Well, no, because the trade-off is that after the breadwinner rests, the breadwinner gives the stay-at-home person time off. You have to clock that, because you got 24 hours in a day. If you're sleeping 6 to 8 hours a day, not everybody does, because I sleep 2 to 4, sometimes 4 to 6, which leaves me with 18 hours of awake time. But some people who have like 14 hours or 16 hours of awake time, and you're at work for 10 hours of that, that means that out of the 6 hours of downtime that I have when I'm not at work and I'm not asleep, out of that, I could take 3 hours to rest, and then I could take 3 hours to give you a break. And then I can take myself to bed. And then on my days off, I can spend half of my day off giving you a half a day off if we're dealing with kids, and then we can do some stuff together as a family on top of that. That's being reasonable with the proportion of responsibilities. But that really depends on if you have a suitable partner that's going to co- contribute effort to the dynamic. Because if they're not going to contribute the effort that needs to be contributed, you're in a situation where one person's doing all the stuff and the other person just riding the wave, and that's a heavy burden. He said, well, or you can go look for a job. I mean, sarcastically speaking, yeah, you probably could go look for a job, but you got to understand that if you're in a dynamic that one person is not working for a reason, you can't just validate your ability to bring in an income and say, okay, well, you need to bring in an income too. Everybody in the household must contribute some kind of way. That is a definite, but it isn't always a monetary contribution. Where you're not bringing money into the fold, you bring in effort, and you're supposed to do stuff that needs to get done when other people are doing things that is benefiting you. And that is reasonable contribution. It doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, we're not equal until you have a job too. It's not, oh, we're equal is if we both have a job. What we're reasonably contributing when you're doing things around the house that benefits the house while I'm working. He says, well, work from home. Again, I know devil's advocate, you're going to throw a lot of excuses in there, Michael, but let's be honest. You don't have to work from home. If I'm working from home and you're working from home, it still doesn't change the fact that if the stuff needs to be cleaned up around the house, at the end of the day, somebody still got to do it. If I work away from home and you work from home, that doesn't change the fact that the stuff around the house still needs to be done. You can't say that me leaving the house gives me more valid job than you working from home. And we can't say that your income being higher than my income validates your lack of effort to the stuff around the house. The stuff still needs to be done. So when we start talking about the allocation of responsibilities, reasonable allocation of responsibility comes from the availability in time of the person and skill set of the person. So whether or not they work from home doesn't change the fact that if I have a lot of responsibilities that this household survives on, you must take some of these responsibilities off of my plate so that we can reasonably have a semi even or reasonably balanced distribution of responsibilities where I'm doing some stuff and I can take a break and rest, and you're doing some of the stuff and you can take a break and rest. And at the end of the day, I'm not the only person working 18 hours a day to make sure that we survive where you're only working two. That's the difference. That's the holistic observation of balance. He says, take the kids with you to the job site and give them a shovel. Well, now you're just clowning around because at the end of the day, if you don't first, depending on the age of the children, you're not supposed to take them to construction sites and give them a shovel. Second, if you have a farm, you probably could do that. But if you work in a bank or an office building or something like that, a computer tech job or something like that, you can't really always take your kids to work. If you're a cop or a CIA agent or a judge or something like that, you can't always take your kids to work. If you have kids that are of a reasonable age, they can help the stay at home parent contribute towards reasonably keeping the house organized if you start teaching them 3, 4, and 5 years old how to be helpful. But at the end of the day, even if you have kids, you have to show the kids at the most impressionable ages that everyone must contribute. Just like the Amish, everyone must contribute. And it's not just 2 hours a day worth of work. It is the entire time that you're awake. If I'm putting in 18 hours, you're putting in 18 hours, at least 10. You know what I mean? And that makes more sense. He says, I bought land and the retailer bought his kids. Okay, okay. Special shout out to Jolin. So with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and get started because we're gonna be talking about a new country that I had did some research on in Africa. Um, and this is gonna be one that covers some headlines with generalizations. So we're gonna paint a different picture of this country and give you guys some information about how to get things done. He says, nothing wrong with putting your kids to work. No, there's nothing wrong with putting your kids to work. I mean, the sarcasm in the way you describe it might be entertaining in a joking fashion, but truth be told, in realistically and logically speaking, that if you're teaching your kids how to be responsible and teaching your kids how to be helpful and beneficial, children at impressionable ages want to be validated and they want to be useful. They initially start off with an instinct of wanting to be praised by their parents. And those are the moments where instead of leaving the children idle, you always giving them tasks that becomes repetitive behavior where they're helping you out around the house. And because they're helping you out around the house, you can validate and appreciate the fact that they're useful to you, which then gives them the positive praise instead of the negative consequences for doing bad things. If you spend more time teaching the children what you want them to do in life, you spend less time disciplining them for the things that you don't want them to do in life. And then they ultimately put less effort into trying not to get caught doing the things that you don't want them to do. And they'll put more time in getting the things done that you want them to do so that they can receive that praise more frequently. It's a reward system, just like with video games. The first 30 days of a video game, there's rewards out the ass. There's so many different rewards that you can't keep up with them. And those little dopamine hits, every time you do something, you get a reward. You're going to keep doing that and to get the reward. And now you're logging in every day to get the rewards. And that conditions you to develop a habit of logging in every day. If you're getting rewards every 4 hours, you're going to find yourself logging in every 4 hours to get those rewards. If you're helping out your parents every day and you're getting rewarded for helping out your parents every day, where sometimes it's not actually physical gifts, sometimes it's hugs, thank yous, high fives. I appreciate your help. Come help me with this. I have a helpful kid, blah, 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 blah. That gives them the validation that they need to keep being helpful, and that is beneficial. So it's not always cracking a whip in a farm or some shit like that that makes the kids useful to you in the house. It could be washing the dishes, vacuuming the floors, sweeping and mopping, washing the car outside, helping with the windows, stuff to that effect. Safe things that kids can actually do that takes the stress off of your plate with being a stay-at-home parent. Because instead of them getting into mischief, they are productively improving the quality of the house, which takes the workload off of the parent. Now the parent can make phone calls and set up appointments and this, that, and the third to get more stuff done in a shorter period of time and be more productive. Jolin says, my daughter's been learning chores since she could walk. Tell me about it. They be still in diapers and I be putting them to work. I be Cinderella. I be the evil stepdad. I be putting them kids to work. They be standing up there like soldiers, waiting on me to issue them instructions. He says, when are you moving to one of them? Well, that's a wild question, Michael, because eventually the podcast will be traveling the world. But, in order to do that, you got to have a stable foundation. Because if you're coming back to the starting point, you have to establish a type of stable foundation that allows for the podcast to uh, um, have the home base compensated for while on tour, which costs twice as much money. So you got to understand, whenever it happens, you guys will know. But you guys should be as successful as I am traveling the world with me, not just through the podcast, but actually in person, if you're paying attention and implementing the information that I give you. He says, yep, encouraged him. That's right. Of course, my daughter never had an iPad, cell phone. Right. Only books. So they don't got time to be negatively influenced by social media. He says Pablo's law, right? No video games either, no social media. Right. So she's not gonna get corrupted by the latest trends and the latest TikTok things, and she's not gonna learn what views are until she's a teenager. By the time she's old enough to know what that stuff is, she's not going to value it because her core upbringing would be completely different. So imagine a coastline that's buzzing with energy. It's a city where ancient traditions meet global trade, all happening at one of the world's most vital maritime crossroads. Now, imagine yourself living there, not just getting by, but living well. So if we're working on a budget with the $3,000 a month that we talk about on a weekly basis, this is United States dollars. The question is, in a city with a reputation for being one of Africa's more expensive spots for expats, what kind of life can you actually buy? A lot of people wonder if you can really thrive in a frontier market without being a millionaire. They see the high level economic reports, hear about the military bases, and just assume that it's impossible. Excuse me. Because intellectually, that little girl can remember books that she read 10 years ago about different species of birds that she'll tell me about. And you encourage her uh, by asking her even more complicated questions about birds that she may end up being an archaeologist or a zoologist or something like that. You never know where she'll end up with. She could be a historian. Children absorb more information like sponges at a younger age. So the type of child that you have will depend upon the type of information that you allow them to absorb. If you allow them to absorb um, uh, adult level cartoons, social media, too many video games, idle behavior, this, that, and the third. When you start trying to give them responsibility, you'll find that it's harder to give them responsibility. If the children only observe being responsible, thinking outside of the box, strategic planning. If you're teaching your children investing, saving, spending, budgeting, long term return on investment, how to put a monetary value to physical effort, how to value your own personal time. All of these things, if you're teaching this to them, then with like children right now are being unknowledgeably conditioned to value branding because the adults value branding, because the other kids value branding. But if you teach your kids the value of durability, not the value of branding, while other kids can brag and boast and sometimes bully your kid because your kid is not wearing the latest name brand item, your kid is going to be proud of what they have because your kid doesn't have to use low self-esteem as a crutch to get expensive stuff to impress other people to get external validation because she's going to be proud of who she is. So she won't have to show off for society, which saves that child money and allows that child to use that money to spend more money to make money for herself, which is more beneficial to that child's future. Now, you might have to teach her some kung fu, some jujitsu, some shit like that, which allows for her to be able to uh, um, uh, deal with some of those bully situations. But at the end of the day, it's one of those situations where you just gotta um, tighten up with how you teach the kids when they're more impressionable. If you're teaching this to them at 2 and 3 and 4 years old, by the time they're 8, 9, and 10 years old, 11, 12, 13 years old, they are so fundamentally conditioned that it's going to be harder for society to break that upbringing. He says, and we'll identify those birds by name and species just by viewing them. That's actually very good. He says, oh, don't get me wrong. She watched Deadpool at 10 years old. I mean, I might have my kid watching Resident Evil or Friday the 13th or whatever, but what they're not doing is spending 14 hours a day watching Netflix. What they're not, you might have them watch a 1 hour movie with the family at family night kind of situation, whether it's Deadpool or Spider Man or, yeah, I can't. I don't know what parents watch with their kids, Miraculous Season or whatever the case may be. But you have the kids like, okay, we're going to watch 1 or 2 hours of TV, and then after that, we're going to go be productive. By teaching your children that, they're going to limit their television watching. They're not going to value TV over effort. They're not going to value internet over effort. They're not going to value the things that makes it hard for you as a parent with a teenager to get them to be productive, which is actually more effective for you. So I think that's actually very good. Uh, you be pushing the envelope with me so much, Max, that I be trying my best not to block you, but you always come and you never do what I told you to do, which is behave. And I'm really tired of it. So Max says, what do you think about Love Island, the show? And which is not what we're talking about today because we're talking about Africa. So And the side topic is teaching your children how to be responsible so that they're not behaving the way Max is behaving right now. So you're claiming that you feel like it's just promoting hookup culture and it is very degenerate. What do I think? Well, I think that it is 12:15 at night and a 16-year-old should be in bed asleep. That's what I think. I think that because this is an 18 or above podcast and you're not here learning how to make, save, and invest money, and more often than not, when you come to the podcast, you're clowning around and distracting the conversation from important topics that you should not be here on the podcast communicating with the other people on the podcast since you're unwilling to behave after I have warned you multiple times over the last 7 days and I should not have given you so much leniency. I should have blocked you as soon as you put up the first three comments that you put up on the show today. Now, as it pertains to your comment about that TV show, I don't believe you should have been watching that TV show because that's an adult TV show. That TV show is not made for kids, but nobody's watching you. That's the reason why you're able to watch this type of inappropriate behavior. And I don't believe that whatever's going on that television show, should you have the knowledge of that, you should have the knowledge of how to take your skateboarding sponsorship and turn that into a career where your money is making money for you so that when you get too old to skate or when you get too injured to skate that you have a second income instead of spending a lot of your days trolling the podcast for negative attention. If you want positive attention, you can come here and be appropriate about investment discussions and you can be appropriate and stay on the topic that we are discussing. Because I know that there's a whole pop up that happens before you hit the comment section that specifically says stay on topic. And you're not staying on topic deliberately. He says, daily chores, a 15-year-old. She's been doing since she was 10 wakes up at 5 a.m. Oh, dang. Uh, feed the dog. It gives them water, cleans up the poop, and makes coffee. So many times she'll make breakfast. Look at that. See the difference between a responsible person and an irresponsible person. It says she does the laundry, clean her room, keep it tidy. Okay, so Max, you're in California. So in California, your bedtime is supposed to be like 1 hour after dinner or 2 hours after sunset. So you should be in bed right now and you should be asleep. And you're not in bed asleep because it's summer vacation. He says, okay, sorry, I'll be focused. I just heard you guys talking about television, so I asked about a question that I had. Well, look, we were talking about how, and I'm going to entertain your side discussion. I respect your apology here. We were talking about how when children are taught how to behave at a younger age, it doesn't take as much effort to teach them things because they are not negatively conditioned to misbehave. One of the things that had us mentioning television was that while we might allow our children to have limited exposure to television, that we do not just put them in front of TV and make the TV their babysitter, where we're not monitoring what the kids are looking at and the kids are just off staring at TV. And as long as they're quiet, they're not getting into trouble. If we put the children to work, and that's what Joel was talking about, that his daughter's up first thing in the morning, probably just as early as him, if not before him, making coffee and making breakfast for the family instead of getting into trouble. And in order for the child to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, the child is going to bed at a reasonable time, which means at 8, 9 o'clock at night, the child is in bed asleep, which means the child would not be up in the middle of the night strolling on social media. The child would be getting a good night's sleep so that she can wake up and be responsible, which aids the child in being a responsible adult because in your adult life, your your core upbringing actually impacts your adult life because if you're partying at night with your homeboys and cracking jokes with your homeboys at night, you're not getting a sleep that you need at night. Then when it's time for you to wake up on time in the morning, you're tired. You develop a habit that you can't break during summer break because you stay up late hours of the night all night, most nights out of the summer weeks. Then the first 2 weeks of school, you're tired because you're going to bed at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and then you're waking up at 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning to catch that morning bus or get dropped off at school so that you can be at class for 7 o'clock. And the irony is that now that you're going into high school, if you're not already in high school, you're going to school earlier than what you was going to school when you were in middle school because high school starts at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning to let you out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which means that if you're up at 1 o'clock in the morning, you're not getting 5 hours of sleep because it takes you 30 minutes after you stop being productive, after you stop being active, to let your brain wind down for you to actually drift into a REM sleep. So if you decided to lay down right now and close your eyes and go to sleep, it would take you a half hour to do it. So if you stay up with me on the show for another 2 hours, where you will be going to sleep at midnight, you'll be laying down at midnight, and then your brain would be shutting down at 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. If you had to get up for school, you will be getting up in 5.5 hours, which means that you would not be getting enough rest to function, which means that you're going to be groggy in class. You're not going to be able to maintain concentration. You're going to lose focus, which negatively impacts your ability to retain information, which makes it harder for you to pass your test, which makes it harder for you to make the good grades, which makes it harder for you to graduate, which adds unnecessary stress to you as a child. And then, if your grades are not satisfactory, now you have your parents fussing at you about the lack of satisfaction in your grades, which causes you to have another higher level of stress, which actually is counterproductive to your ability to succeed. And this is the type of bad behavior that is developed, not bad behavior as like a juvenile delinquent, but bad behavior as counterproductive to the child's ability to achieve the child's own goals because you're not doing what you should be doing, which is sleeping now so that you can get up early in the morning so that you can have your routine ready for school. Because school starts in like 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, probably 4 weeks, because we're in the middle of July and school starts on like the second or third week of August. So you got about a month left to retrain yourself to get up for school in the morning. And most people don't. And that also means that as an adult, you're going to be the kind of person that's going to be drinking coffee to stay awake, to work a day job, and then trying to YOLO and party at night with the fear of missing out. And you're going to always be exhausted, which is counterproductive because you're not going to be the best employee you can be on the job because you're too tired to be the best person that you can be on the job. And that's going to have you stressed out because your life is not what you wanted it to be, because you're spending too much time having fun with other people. See, Joe would say, "Yep, she's been asleep for an hour now." That's my point. Good kids are already in bed asleep. He said, "It's summer. I go to bed later. I know, and that's counterproductive for you." He said, "But I value my sleep during the school season. I go to bed at 9 or 10 o'clock and wake up at 6:45 and be able to run for 30 minutes before school, shower and get ready, and that gives me 9 plus hours." I understand that you're able to but you have 3 months, 3 or 4 months of no school that allows you to break that routine. And then because you're not consistent with that, that forces you to retrain yourself. As an adult, people who wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and run and go to the gym and then take a shower and then have breakfast, that is their daily routine for 20 or 40 years, never taking a day off. They run in the rain. They run when it's hot. They run when it's cold. They work out when it's dark out. They work out when the sun is out. They go to the gym at the same time every day. They work out at the same time every day. They have breakfast at the same time every day. They rarely allow anything other than a job to change their daily routine. Where if they have to go to work early because of a project that they're doing, will they change their gym hours? But if they have a stable job with stable hours where they're consistently going to work at the same time, they're consistently getting off at the same time, and they're consistently performing before they go to work, those people have a set schedule for 40 years. So if this is the routine that you have that I got here on the screen right now, if this is the routine that you have, and it's up here for those watching the 6x9, if that's the routine that you have, that's the routine that you're supposed to have when you don't go to school. Is that you go to bed at 9 or 10, which means that you would have been in bed for the last hour, sleep. You would wake up at 6:45 in the morning. You would run for 30 minutes before you shower, get ready to do productive stuff around the house, like help mom and dad with cooking and cleaning, washing the cars, cutting the grass, and doing stuff around the house that is productive. Once you finish doing things that's productive, you might go out there and do some skate videos to honor your sponsorship, and then try to find other ways to promote yourself to get more sponsors, which would actually help you with your ultimate small business, which then allows you by dinner time to be back at the house at a reasonable time so you're not out late and you're able to shower again, eat dinner, and you will be tired enough to go to bed. And you would have a consistent pattern where the only thing you're doing during the summer that you wouldn't be doing during the school year is that you're building your brand to promote yourself more during the summer than what you would be building your brand to promote yourself during the school season. And you'll be helping out around the house more during the summer because you have more free time around the house during the summer than what you would be during the school year. But your routine wouldn't change. That's how adults handle things. Is that during the summer I sleep in more after off in bed. This is even this isn't every night. Hey, but it's not a consistent routine. Jolan says she's homeschooled though. Smart move. Predominantly here entire her entire life. We tried school briefly, and they fed her candy. The teachers. Well, so teachers use a reward system, giving kids candy to make them behave, but the sugar makes the kids rambunctious. And then when the kids start getting into fights and disobeying the teacher, then the teachers call you and make it seem like it's your fault for being bad parents when they're bribing the children with candy, and that's not appropriate. Um, the only thing I would do is, outside of homeschooling the child would be to socialize the child by bringing her places where kids go to hang out. Um, Appropriately, reasonably appropriately, just so that she can have that socialization. But I would keep her homeschooled, like 16, 17 years old, 18 years old, keep her homeschooled. He said, true to me, I value sleep a lot so I can get the human growth hormones released. But you're not productive during the day though. He says, I used to have bad grades due to bad sleep, so I focus and fix my sleep schedule. And true, but you don't have a set schedule for your productivity. Like for example, I start this podcast every night of the week at almost the same time every night of the week. 7 days a week, holidays, weekends, doesn't matter. I'm always here. I prep for the show at the same time every night of the week. I release content for the show seemingly every night of the week. It is a routine. It is a daily habit. And you're not going to change the daily habit because of the season. Because if you change the daily habit because of the season, then you're not going to be consistent with yourself. And what that problem causes for you is inconsistency. And sometimes it develops a level of procrastination. And that's one of the reasons why I'm telling you that for your own personal goals, it would benefit you more to be more consistent with yourself and maintain the school routine that you have when you're not in school and just replace the things that you did at school with the things that you're going to do during summer break. Or you can get ahead of your school. And since you've got 3 months off from school, you can spend 4 hours out of your day learning next semester's schoolwork, which allows for you to have been exposed to the material 3 months before the rest of your peers, which gives you the ability to have higher grades during the school year, which will cause you to become an honor student, which will get you more praise. It'll get you on the honors roll, which will get you the pizza and the root beer float. It'll get you the field trips. You'll be taking notes for classes where you won't have to take notes during of the school season, which allows for you to be better prepared. Like doing working ahead is another way to build your future for success. It's just something people don't do regularly. He says, "Yeah, I'm a carpenter. There's no daily routine. Sometimes the job starts at 5 a.m., 2 hour drive away, and sometimes 6 to 9 locally. I wake up 4:20 a.m. since 14. But that's your routine, though, Jolin. You've been waking up at 4:20 every day since you were 14. So regardless of what you do, you are on your feet at 5 a.m. And whatever your day has in store for you is going to be what you're going to do for that day. You don't sometimes wake up at 5 a.m. and then sometimes wake up at 10 a.m. You wake up at the same time every day, no matter what. You go to bed at the same time every day, no matter what, unless you have an emergency with your kid. And then the awake time that you have, you fill those time slots with different schedules. But when you don't have something to do, you're still awake. You're not going to say, "Well, I'm going to sleep in late because I don't have a client until 11:45." No, you're probably going to promote something. You're going to get some bills done. You're probably going to go work on your other truck. You're going to do something around the house, something that benefits you. Your child is homeschooled. You might be teaching your kid. You're going to be doing something during that awake time, and that's because you have a consistent life schedule. Even if the itinerary is not consistent, your life routine is still consistent. He says, "Well, every summer I wake up at 8:15 to go swimming until 9:30, and then I cook and walk my dog. I skate and film, and then eat lunch, work out, and then dinner, be with friends, and sometimes join a podcast and sleep." Right. But if you kept that same routine that you had from school, instead of you getting up at 8:15, you would still be getting up at 6:30, which, because you say like you get up at like 6:45, if you were getting up at 6:30, 6:45, you would still be getting up 2 hours earlier, which means that you would be able to spend that 2 hours finding something else to do, something else more meaningful. But it would also require you to go to bed 2 hours sooner. Because I don't mind you coming to the podcast when you're behaving inappropriate, but instead of staying up later, if you got up at your normal time and just filled that time slot with something else, then you could be more productive. Because if you don't got anything else to do but help mom around the house during the summer, you can help mom make breakfast, you can make dad coffee, you can you know go detail the car before dad leaves for work, wash and vacuum out the car and stuff, clean the rims. You can sweep the driveway so that there's no debris in the yard to keep your dad from having flat tires. Go get the mail, grab the newspaper. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do first thing in the morning that you don't have time to do because you're going to school. And it would help the other people in the house instead of just sleeping in late and focusing on yourself. He said, "Yeah, 31 years old." He said, "Well, I like to get even more hours possible in the summer." That's because you're tired as fuck because you burn the candle at both ends. He said, "But it's enough to keep the practice of a routine, so it's not hard to change during the school year. It's good that you have some kind of routine. It's a 2 hour time difference from your normal school routine, which means the first 2 or 3 weeks of school, you're going to have some lag because you're going to be getting up 2 hours sooner than what you normally do for the last 3 months. It takes 66 days to develop a habit, and it takes twice as long to break it, which means that you should be spending 120 to 130 days to break that habit, which means that the first 2 months, the first 2.5 months of school, you're going to be struggling with getting up 2 hours early. Yeah, you might have your alarm clock. Yeah, you might have your hot chocolate. Yeah, you might have your mom waking you up to make sure that you don't be late. But the first 2 hours of your school day, you're going to be tired every day until you get back into that other routine instead of having a consistent routine where you just slide right back into what you were already doing because everything is still the same. He says, I help my dad daily to detail the cars at his shop and put tires for sale online and clean his shop during the day too. And I help him out a lot. That's definitely appreciate coffee in the morning. Yes. Yes, we do. You see these big ass cup of coffees I be drinking during the damn show. If I had somebody making fucking coffees for me around the house, I'd be like, damn. Even if the coffee was cold by the time I got to it, the fact that it was pre-made so that I could just pour it in my cup and start drinking it. He said, summer in school is same amount of sleep, about it's just a different ratio, same amount of time awake and time asleep, just at different times. And that is the key factor that you're missing about the discussion. If your going to sleep time doesn't change much because you have two different time changes. You're going to have the 2 hour time difference between when you decide to get up and when you're required to get up. And then you're going to have another time difference of daylight savings time. So when time goes back an hour, where you have an extra hour out of your day, where 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock becomes 10 o'clock, right? You'll have an extra hour out of your day. But when you're going from getting up at 8 o'clock to getting up at 6 o'clock, you're going to be losing 2 hours. So you might gain an hour and lose an hour, but you're going to still be in a situation where your routine of waking up gets thrown off. And because the routine of waking up gets thrown off, the first 2 or 3 hours of your day is going to be the hardest because you're going to be tired. And that is the problem with being consistent throughout your day because you're not going to be properly ready for your day because you're going to be tired when you wake up. Now, that will negatively impact your workout. That's going to negatively impact your performance with the first two classes you have in school. It doesn't matter if one of the first two classes you have is homeroom. One of those classes you're going to be sluggish in because of the time adjustment. So even if you have a good routine, even if you're helpful with the family, the fact is that if you maintain the same routine during the summer that you maintain during the school season, the only thing you're changing is what you're doing during your awake time, not when you wake up. You'll understand when you become an adult. Right now, you validate it because it works for you, but you would find yourself more efficient if you were consistent throughout the year. He says, yeah, I get my coffee brewing right now. It's 9:30. Although I gotta have my daily monster. At least I'm not drinking five of them anymore. But and that's gonna be where exhaustion is gonna lead. And funny thing is that caffeine and caffeinated drinks like monsters and Red Bulls and all that other stuff, those are blockers, which interferes with dopamine release. Um, what you end up happening is that it eats serotonin and dopamine releases, and what you end up having happen is that you start developing insomnia because your body blocks the natural chemicals that it needs to maintain balance. And then you start having problems with getting enough rest versus being rested when you wake up. And then you become codependent on those energy drinks and those caffeinated drinks to keep you awake during the day instead of you having the natural energy to stay awake. It's a lifestyle choices is what they call it. He says, well, I've got more to improve on in my routine, but at least I've got a far better routine than all the homies and kids my age. Right, but you have a terrible network with you because while your friends will collaborate with you and work together to troll a live podcast. They won't collaborate with you to work better at improving your ability to get more skating contracts. Because you got one skating contract for $5,000, but you're not exclusive to them. You could have 10 or 20 different sponsors where you're making $30,000 a month on just skating. You can turn it into a career. You can turn it into the type of scenario where you can actually become a big time investment tycoon before you're 20. But instead of your friends trying to help you better yourself, your friends are helping you get into trouble for entertainment because they don't have anybody giving them attention. So they're going to use negative behavior to get a positive reaction, which doesn't work out well. So you have a bad network of people. These are the people that you know, but they're not empowering you and improving your ability to be a better you. They're encouraging you to be a toxic you that is going to be catastrophic towards your future success, where you're going to end up with your friends doing things for a laugh that will end up requiring you to say I'm sorry, and I'm sorry is not enough, and doors and opportunities will be closed off from you because your face was on the video camera when y'all were misbehaving the other Sunday. And if that video goes viral, your sponsor will see that video and then you start having problems with getting sponsorship. You think that you're immune to consequence, but you're not. And having friends that are going to encourage you to do stuff negative now are going to be the same kind of friends that's going to encourage you to do things in the future that would lead you to go to jail. And once you start getting in trouble with the law, you no longer have the support from society to be a successful business person because not a lot of wealthy people want to do business with criminals. And not a lot of sponsors want to sponsor people who do degenerate behavior. Yeah, and daylight savings time. He said, although in Arizona we don't have that, I think we're the only state that doesn't. Yeah, you're the only state that doesn't officially have daylight savings time. But you're if you're traveling out of state, you're gonna find those time zones getting on your damn nerves. He said, I used to have caffeine all the time, but I got my sleep to where I don't need an alarm. That's an improvement. So I naturally wake up when I need due to the time, and I go to bed and I have energy all day. Well, most of the day. I mean, the same homies, and sometimes I join the podcast. They film me skating. Lucas Poser sometimes joins the stream, but he also films me almost daily. And he is a great VX 1000 camera filmer, good angles. Right, but what you don't understand is that just because he's good with a camera doesn't mean that he's a good influence. Because while he can follow you around with a camera and get good camera angles, if he's willing to help you get into trouble, imagine this. If you were an athlete, you're a football player, and let's say your friend was uh, a good friend that helps you train, helps you practice, catch the ball with you, help you run your routes, help you do your screenplays. Always there filming you when you're on the field, so that you can get your draft pick position. But that's the same friend that's got you getting in the bar fights where you lose your NFL contract. At the end of the day, just because he can be supportive of your dream doesn't mean he's a positive influence of your dream, because he's encouraging you and allowing you to make bad decisions that will destroy your dream. And that's what you need to learn, because you are under contract with a legitimate business. You have the responsibility to not do irresponsible things, because you have an influencer contract, which means that you impact other people. You get paid to be a positive influence. Once that contractor realizes you are not a positive influence, they will pull your funding. The way they took Drake's funding, the way they took Kendrick Lamar's funding, the way they took Kanye West funding. Billions of dollars that man lost because he made one statement on social media. The fact is that you're supposed to have the kind of friends that say, "Hey, man, let's not do that to that podcast because that could cause you to lose your contract. Let's not clown around over here where people can see us because our face is known since I'm being videotaped skating. You have my face on social media skating. If you put that face with that face over there being a juvenile delinquent, my sponsor might put one and one together and cut my contract. Now that you're talking about I'm going to end up being a digital superstar with what I'm doing with the skateboard. I don't want to be a digital juvenile delinquent at the same time because those two videos can be on the same highlight reel and cause me to lose my money. I want to be responsible whenever I'm on video. I want to be responsible when I'm not on video just in case somebody's videotaping me from afar because your fans will run up on you with a video camera before you know they got a video camera out. And if they catch you doing something inappropriate, that's what we call a social scandal. And those scandals cause you to lose contracts. Those scandals cause what's his name, Simon to lose the NBC thing. Bill Cosby lost a the CBS contract where he was about to own television networks. Multi-billion-dollar contracts are lost for a reputation flaw. Okay, a reputation flaw. And that's why I'm so hard on you. I allow you to continue to come, but I'm hard on you about behaving here because this is the first steps of teaching you your reputation is your income. And you have to keep your reputation clean. Otherwise, you're going to mess up your income. So if you don't have good friends, it's going to keep you on the up and up, bro. First person accountability, you got to get better friends. I'm a walking business now. So my reputation is money, which means I have to have the best reputation I possibly can. So I will never be seen in society doing irreputable behavior. Jolin said, we're we're the defiant state, one of the first territories, and one of the last remaining to join the union. Yeah, true. They were talking about getting rid of daylight savings time, but it's like if you rise with the sun and fall with the sun, I mean, it's going to be a natural occurrence anyway. He says, it was so much different when we were kids. Video cameras, even tape recorders, were potentially incrimination. Bro, that's the way things are right now. Back in the day, we had like Polaroids, we had Kodak cameras. If somebody took a picture of you doing some shit that you wasn't supposed to do, that was it. Once that film developed and they showed somebody, your reputation was ruined. And we did not have the ability to get up and move somewhere else and start a whole new life somewhere else. But the only privilege we had with starting over was because if we moved, it was like witness protection. If we do something wrong when before the internet, before 2009, and we changed schools to a different district on a different side of the state or a different side of the city, that new school didn't know who the fuck we were. So our reputation wouldn't follow us. Today, you can do something on this podcast tonight, and it will be in the cell phone of all of your classmates in September. You can change schools in October, and they will still be talking about you in November. You can't misbehave the way you used to behave back in the day. The accountability is ruthless because while there's no accountability on social media for your inappropriate behavior, so you can laugh and joke and play and clown and do all the disrespectful stuff because nobody's gonna slap you in the mouth in the moment. The fact is that that behavior is on the internet forever, and now the consequences cannot be undone because you don't have control of how many people got the video before the video got taken down, and somebody else can repost the video somewhere else, so it will forever be accessible on the internet. And when the people that pay you find that video, they're going to cut you off, and that's when you no longer have the free reign of future opportunities that you used to have before you started making bad decisions. So now in a digital area, you're not supposed to unnecessarily break laws. You're not supposed to unnecessarily carry yourself in a disrespectful fashion. You're not supposed to do anything in modern society that would be deemed socially unacceptable even if you have the personal right to do it because of your age or your race or whatever the case may be, you are not supposed to perform socially unacceptable because third party judgment is going to happen to your first party decision making from a second party camera angle. And you can't recover from that. He says, it was so much different. Oh yeah, we already covered that one. He says, yeah, if somebody's parents found it, we were all screwed. You ain't lying, because everybody got a whooping. It didn't matter who parent caught us. Because I don't have social media accounts, just YouTube, rando. Yeah, right now, this is it. This is all I got. This is this is all I got. So when I got this, and I think I got a TikTok one, and I got a couple of other platforms that I have, but it's all just this podcast. So the only time that I'm seen on social media is when I'm saying something positive or I'm doing something motivating and I'm trying to help people be better people. So I'm never in a situation where I'm not doing anything different than what I was originally doing. You know what I'm saying? And that's what people don't realize. So, yeah. He says, I'm unidentifiable on any of the programs for some reason. Well, you and I grew up in an era where we don't have an original digital footprint. I'm actually hard to find on social media as well. Uh, but that doesn't mean I can't be found. It just means that because I did not post so much stuff about myself to be relevant to the internet that the internet did not keep track of me, and any information about me might be so outdated that no one's utilizing it to try to keep track of me, which makes it harder for people to identify me, which makes me invisible to the modern society. But these kids post every week. These kids have been posting every week since they was like 5 or 10 years old. They got 5 years worth of social media data that builds their identity. So they don't have to create anything new. They just have to copy and paste from their Gmail account, copy and paste from their Hotmail, their Instagram, their Snapchat, their Facebook. They just have to copy and paste their already existing social footprint, and it will copy and paste videos that has facial recognition where their face is seen in the background or in the foreground of videos that other people recorded. And AI software is getting so popular now that you no longer have to be the star of the video. You just have to be in the background of the video when something's going down, and it will connect you to that incident, which ultimately means that if a crime is committed in your presence and you're there and a video camera was running, you're part of the incident. You don't have to cause it, but you were there. And now, when it comes down to reputation, if multiple scenarios occur where you're always in a conflictual situation, they're going to consider you high risk because you're always in a conflictual situation. If you're considered high risk, people of value are not going to affiliate with you because you are considered high risk. Everywhere you go also goes conflict. The only people that can pull that off is journalists. But nobody of financial value likes journalists. So again, your ability to succeed gets compromised. He says, multiple cell phones. I've tried to use facial recognition. I've tried to use voice recognition. I've tried to use fingerprint identification. None of it works for me. Something about my electric field. Oh, shit. You better take advantage of that shit. That's some Jason Bourne shit. Because the only reason why the stuff don't work with me because I got these prescription glasses, so facial recognition doesn't work because it primarily works off of the facial structure and the retina scan. And since it can't scan the eyes, my face doesn't exist because essentially the system thinks that I'm a ghost. Man, you better enjoy that shit. Even my brand new smartwatch decided to kill its battery for some reason being on my person. Wow, that's serious. He says, I can't even wear a watch, even a conventional one, because it'll die. Man, so you absorb electrons instead of producing them. That's interesting. I wonder what caused that. So you asked, does Africa have a possible future, a good possible future investments? That's what we were supposed to be talking about today. One of the countries in Africa that does have some different places that you can invest in and some stuff to do. Most countries around the world have real estate. Places like Africa have certain levels of agriculture that you can also invest in. There's geotourism that you can invest in, and there is because the infrastructure is being developed, there's infrastructure opportunities like solar power and hydropower and thermal fuel and all of these other things that you can invest in. And some of these things are government backed like opportunity zones, which allows for you to either get tax cuts or get subsidies from the government to invest in these things. Africa has a lot of investment opportunities. It just really tries to teach, and which is why I really try to teach you guys to think outside of the box and find other ways to be more effective. Um, I wonder why uh, some trollers like to come up and do those Bible thumping Jesus love you things. Technically, I told you guys to stay on topic, so this isn't on topic, so I'm going to go ahead and ban you for this. But it doesn't even give you anything of value, right? You have to recognize to really be a person of quote unquote God status to really say that you're going to represent Jesus in the Bible and whatever the case may be, you have to recognize that one of the main things that Jesus told you to do was to go and teach people who wanted to be taught, you know. So you don't force the Bible onto people. If they want to know, you will tell them. And only the people who maintain the knowledge, like the 12 disciples, were sent out to share the knowledge that they have to people that wanted to learn. For you to run around, and so a lot of these people do this, they come and they scream, Jesus loves you. That's not something that you're not supposed to already know because the largest majority of the world's population that was raised on any type of Catholic, Christian, or Baptist religion has all learned that um, they were born from an era where God sacrificed himself for the sake of humanity, but he only sacrificed himself specifically for the people who didn't know that they were fucking up. He didn't sacrifice himself for the people who did know that they were fucking up. He clearly said, forgive them for they not know what they're doing. And that ultimately means that if you know that what you're doing is wrong, like when Max used to come up on a show and misbehave, you know what you're doing is wrong. You're not being asked for forgiveness for being deliberately wrong. You only um, are forgiven for not knowing what you're doing is wrong. So the first time I tell you that what you're doing is wrong or what you're doing is inappropriate, you're supposed to be able to say, oops, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I'm not going to do it again. But when you say I'm sorry, the first time you say I'm sorry, the repentance is you acknowledging that you made a mistake, a judgment error, and you're no longer going to repeat that behavior. The average person has learned from the new commandment that if I continue to apologize for bad behavior, that I can continue to perform bad behavior because I will be forgiven after I say I'm sorry. So I'm going to fuck people over first, say I'm sorry after the fact. I'm already getting away with what I did because I slapped an apology on the back end so I can disrespect and mistreat people and then just throw a oops my bad in there and all is forgiven. That is not how it works. The way that it is supposed to be is that first you're supposed to treat people the way you want to be treated. You want to respect people the way you want to be treated. So if you don't want people to disrespect you on a daily basis, you don't disrespect people on a daily basis. You don't disrespect people ever. And at the end of the day, you must recognize that under every circumstance, you're supposed to put forth all the effort possible to be your best self. Corinthians 1 through 31. So while you came up here and talked about John 4:14, You should have been talking about Austin 316. Because you're trolling a podcast to force religion onto a podcast that was supposed to be talking about Africa and investment opportunities. You do realize, and the only reason why I segued onto this right before I blocked this guy is the fact that to bring people closer to God, you have to first remove the torment in their life. You can't bring people closer to God by forcing them and saying, hey, you must love God. No, let me help you get your shit together so that you're no longer stressed out. And the first thing you're going to say when you're no longer stressed out is, thank you, Jesus, I no longer have stress. But the ability to be able to look up and thank God after you thank me for helping you out of a bad situation is because I gave you a solution to your problem. When the Lord sent his disciples into the den of sin and pulled people out who were lost, people who didn't know what they were doing is wrong, people who didn't know that they were in a fucked up situation, he told them, go get those people, pull them out of that, and then they're going to learn something new. He didn't tell them go into the den of sin and teach them about the word of God. He said, no, go get them and take them out. Go into chaos, pull them out of chaos first, and then after you pull them out of chaos, it'll just happen, right? So there's never a reason why somebody should jump on my podcast trying to preach the word of God on my podcast. Because I can do a good job of that myself. He said, yeah, lend an ear and don't pull at it. I'm a Christian too, but only only if one people want to actually listen. Exactly. You're only talking about it if somebody else bringing it. Ain't no reason for me to put the Bible up here, put the King James version up here on the screen, and start flipping through the pages. That's not what this show is about. This show is about helping you not fuck up your life because that's going to bring you closer to Jesus. The first time that you say that you will finally save from the trials and tribulations of your past is going to be the day that you're cashing that big check, the day that all your bills is paid, the day that you're no longer dealing with the stress that you had from before because you took my advice, you applied that advice, you started making better decisions because the Lord gave you the tools and resources that you needed to succeed. He carried you while you failed, and then you started succeeding on your own. Footprints in the sand. You look back, you only see one path that you've been on, but the majority of the time you were carried by a higher power, and then you carried yourself. But at no point in time were you scapegoating onto somebody else when you're trying to be successful. That's not what people realize. But people faith without work is dead, yet everybody puts blind faith on no effort. And I don't understand why people do that. It's just because I don't know where yet, but I've been trying to find land to get in the future near restricted government areas and national parks. My uncle owns a dock deep in Alaska forest, so tourists come and he is making a ton of money because all the land around for miles is government restricted. You can't camp or hunt. So with the 1,200 acres that he has, people come to fish, camp, and makes a lot of money. That's actually a good idea. He says a lot of places that would be great for tourists, like in national forests and parks, is unfortunately grandfathered land. So you can buy much, but I'm still looking. Hold on, let me see what else he's got going on. He says, I've seen good deals on land in Africa with water access to the Nike River, for example. So you can get a company to run tours for fishing, uh, sightseeing if you pass permits as well. Investing in tourism, try. Yes, that's actually that's actually a good look. You don't necessarily have to buy land directly near government facilities. One of the problems you're going to have with buying land directly near government facilities is depending on what those government facilities are doing and how those government facilities negatively impacts your ability to do whatever it is that you're wanting to do, right? Because if it's a government facility that's doing nuclear testing, he says, hello, hello. Are you the David Koreshi of the internet? Nope. I am Xander from this and that. where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. um, so you say your uncle has like 1,200 acres of land in Alaska. It would be it's beneficial to get land in Alaska because it's hard to get land in Alaska. When you start talking about national forests, you can buy wetlands that you can't develop on. But if you have wetlands that have ponds and lakes and stuff like that, you can do above ground parks and swing sets and stuff to that effect, nature hikes and everything to that effect. You can do preserves on your land. And some of those wetlands can have tax credits on them if you purchase them correctly. But you got to do your research on those. Specifically, trying to go and buy land in Africa just because it's near a lake or a river. I mean, you can do that. I'm not going to tell you don't, but you really have to know what you're trying to get yourself into. If you're trying to get something near the Nike River, um, for tourist fishing, sightseeing, and other such things, you don't just need permits. You need to first establish your business in Africa, and you have to deal with the geopolitics with that. But you establish your business in Africa, then you have to hire certain people that you trust to set up these tours and stuff like that, and then have a mainstream area where you can collect the money from these individuals without having to be there watching the money in a scenario where the people that's working for you is making enough money to not steal from you so that you can make money for yourself, right? So building the business is good because you're going to have boots on the ground. You're going to have somebody that you trust that's living there that's able to manage the business for you so that they can monitor your money so that they can give you your cut. And then you would be able to see that type of investment become successful. He says, I did find a nice property on a very backcountry river in Idaho called the Salmon River. It's famous for fishing a rare hybrid fish called steelhead, and it's famous for rafting. But there is a stretch on. Yeah, uh, one of the problems you have with owning land that is dangerous is that people can sue you for it. So, uh, when like you can, if you do it right, you can fucking own a mountain. But if somebody dies on a mountain, they could potentially hold you responsible for it. So you got to be careful with owning land because anything that happens on your land is your responsibility. He says the river that is 80 miles of rafting with no stop till the next boat launch. Um, is a famous rafting trip, but there is one stop for food on the whole 80 miles section, and I found land there somehow. Well, you would be able to if you're trying to say, well, they've got this rafting thing, they have the ability to stop, but on this 80-mile journey, there's only one place that has food. If you wanted to put food every 20 miles where you can make more money along this path, depending on where stopping points are and if they can safely break, because when you start talking about rafting, they're riding the waves. So unless there's still waters where they can navigate away from the jagged rocks and stuff, they'll sail right past you and not actually be able to land. But if you can find other places where you can set up where they can get food and stuff like that along the way, or if they're rafting downstream but having to hike back upstream, you can do things like have food every 20 miles and then an ATV rental system every 10 miles or every 15 miles, and then have a gas station every 30 miles where they can refuel. And that will allow them to get back up the mountain to where they came from. And then you can have equipment that you ride back down the mountain to start over again, where the people will have the capabilities of riding down the mountain on the water and then riding back up the mountain on your equipment. Because I know some people like to hike, but if you go 80 miles in the water, you don't realize how far you're going in the water, but you're not going to want to walk 80 miles back. That's like a helicopter ride or some shit. So if you set it up where they're like, hey, rent some ATVs and ride back to your car on these ATVs and just leave the ATVs, um, in the parking lot by your car. I can come and get the ATVs and bring them back down the mountain. You can make money off of that. You can put an LLC on land and the LLC will get sued if something happens on the land. You should be establishing an LLC if you're trying to get a bunch of land so that you can separate yourself from uh, the land's business and stuff to that effect, and potentially put that LLC into a trust so that the trustee can handle the business and the business can handle itself, and you can just get paid to exist. He says, so if I could get food there, it would be a great help because it's very hard to get land there. But there are a few cabins there. Michael keeps saying build cabins in the woods, so there you go. You can build a bunch of cabins. Is that? But it would also be very cool to own land there and have a business or whatnot. Yeah, yeah, that's true. There are still waters there. There's some spots with big rapids, but there is a big property for sale around a bend where the water is very slow, and I have rafted in the river and seen the property. Okay. Also, so many people come into this river to fish for the rare salmon and trout hybrid called steelhead. So the property is on a slow, deep pocket of water, so it's easy to get to and it's great. Well, fantastic. You should be able to use that information to decide what kind of business you're going to set up there. You can set up multiple businesses there. You can set up a chain of businesses there. It One of the things you got to do is not just get the permits, you got to get the laws and licensing for it. So after this comment, I'm going to get back to the main topic. It says, sport for fishing isn't the ideal place. You want the fish in order to catch the fish. If you have that along with rentals, a very nice speech to stay at, and the only other nice place to get food on the river, and it will be a big stop because the other place only has ice cream and candy. Oh yeah, if you put real food out there, that'll be more beneficial. You'll put the other people out of business. Now back to the main topic. So we're focusing on Djibouti. That's the topic right now. We're going to be talking about using $3,000 a month budget that could secure a good life and maybe even unlock some unique investment opportunities that you just can't find anywhere else. So this isn't just another cost of living video. This is going to be a story of what your money really buys when you're stepping off the beaten path. So, um, as we have expertly spent a lot of time covering these countries, different countries over the past few years, we're going to be breaking down every single dollar. So, uh, is $3,000 a month enough for comfortably living a life in Africa? Well, let's go ahead and find out. First things first, we're going to tackle the biggest line item in the budget in every country around the world. It is always going to be housing. So if you get this wrong in Djibouti, your $3,000 budget will vanish before you ever have the first cup of local coffee. This has always been identified as the expat trap, and you've got to understand it to survive. Djibouti City is known for being expensive, especially when it comes to housing aimed at the international crowd. So if you show up looking for a three-bedroom villa in a prime expat neighborhood like Heron or Gabode, decked out with all Western finishes, you're in shock because it is not too crazy to see rent for those places blow past $2,000 a month or even $2,500 a month. And that's going to leave you with practically nothing from a $3,000 a month budget. That's not living, that's just surviving your rent. So, the first rule for making this work is being smart about where you live. So, you're going to need a place that's safe, clean, reasonably modern, and has reliable utilities. So, you're not after a palace, but you're not going to compromise on basic comforts either. So this is going to mean that you're going to be looking outside of the most popular and most inflated zones. You're going to focus your search on neighborhoods that are still central, but not the absolute top tier for diplomats or military contractors. You want to think 5 to 10 minute drive from the city center, not right in the city center. Now, this is going to be where you find sweet spots. After a couple of weeks of searching, you're going to find a mix of online forums, word of mouth distribution of information, and literally just driving around looking for what is called allure, which is for rent signs. You're going to land on an apartment, something like a one bedroom in a modernish building, about 60 square meters, which isn't that big, or 650 square feet, which isn't that big. A 600 square foot one bedroom is probably, it's like a college dorm. I mean, to imagine that. Um, and that type of place, depending on how they structure it, could have a living room, bedroom in a separate room, bathroom in a separate room, kitchen in a separate room, and potentially a laundry room in a separate room, all in the same apartment. And depending on how the design is, it could also have a separate dining area adjacent to the kitchen, but separate from the living room in a 650 square foot apartment. But it's a good, real living room. Like I said, separate bedroom, small functional kitchens, uh, bathroom with consistent running water, something quickly that you're going to learn not to take for granted is water pressure. So the whole place would be reasonably air conditioned, which is total non negotiable in a city where the heat can be punishing. The building also has 24/7 security and a lifesaver backup generator for the common power cuts. That's going to aid you in your ability to stay connected. So, what does this life of comfort and security cost you? About $1,100 a month. A lot more expensive than some of the places we've covered over the past month. But let's be clear about the number. It's not the absolute cheapest that you can go. You can find one bedroom apartments outside the city center for maybe $700, but those often involve very big compromises on amenities or security that you might not be willing to tolerate. So on the flip side, a similar place in a prime downtown building could easily hit $1,400 a month or more. So if you have $1,100, that's a strategic choice. It's a mid-range option that gives you reliability and comfort without sinking your budget. For a family, a three-bedroom in a similar mid-range area might run you somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500, but prices can swing wildly depending on the building and the location. So if you're finding an $1,100 a month one bedroom when a three bedroom can be about the same price, that $1,100 one bedroom is a lot more decked out than the $1,000 a month three bedroom because you're going to get more space for less money. Now, when you're apartment hunting, uh, you have to be ready for a different kind of process because there's no big centralized real estate website like we have in America. The market runs on connections, which you actually can turn a side profit from going to certain countries and establishing an internet connection for them, helping them get an online market connection, which allows them to connect more with expats that are on short term travel and stuff to that effect. However, you're going to find that at the moment, your best bet would be to grab a local fixer or an agent. Now, they're going to know which buildings have vacancies long before the signs ever go up through networking. You're likely going to pay a fee, maybe half a month's rent, in order to get this information, but it's often worth it to avoid weeks of going in circles while potentially still paying for a hotel at the same time. Lease agreements can be different from person to person as well. A 1 year lease with a 1 month security deposit is pretty much standard, but some landlords, especially those used to dealing with expats, might ask for several months' rent up front. That's going to be your negotiating point. So if you find to get a standard one, there's going to be a 1 year lease with a 1 month deposit. That's a good call. Now, let's start the tally. Out of $3,000, you already spent $1,100 on a house. So that's going to be the biggest piece of the pie. But by deliberately avoiding the top end expat bubble, you have a safe, comfortable home and still have about $1,900 left over to do some other stuff. So if housing is the most obvious cost, utilities are the hidden trap door. In Djibouti, they require a strategy. The whole story really comes down to two things: electricity and internet. Special shout out to OG Kicks. Let's start with the big one: electricity. Djibouti is hot. Hot as Jesus. Seriously hot. So, for most of the year, air conditioning isn't just a luxury, it's an essential part of your health and your sanity. And AC units are very power hungry. This is going to be where a lot of newcomers get a nasty surprise with bills that can run into the hundreds of dollars if you just leave everything running 24/7. So you're going to want to strategize about mindful consumption. You might have two AC units. During the day, you're only going to want run the one that is in the room that you're in. And at night, you'll cool the bedroom down before you go to sleep and then switch to a fan, which uses way less power. Being good about turning off lights and unplugging things makes a real difference. See, in America, we leave everything plugged in and we just accept that base level um, price for utilities. But if you shut everything off that you don't need and unplug the stuff that has standard power, because if it's got a backlight on it, it's still draining power, even though you don't use it, even though you don't turn it on. If it's plugged in and it doesn't serve a purpose, it's still burning power, even though you're not using it. You just unplug it. Just watch how quick your light bill goes down. But what's the damage here if we're dealing with monthly electric bills with power in Djibouti? About $120 a month. Water is going to be much more reasonable, usually around $20 a month. But that's going to bring your total power and water to about $140 a month. And this is going to be a number that you're going to actively manage because if you get lazy and just leave stuff plugged in and turned on, or just leave too many things on in too many different areas that you don't necessarily need, this could easily double. Now, for the second major utility, it's going to be the biggest headache for foreigners that move to Djibouti. It's going to be that internet. For a long time, the telecom scene has been run by a single state owned company, which is Djibouti Telecom. And while things are slowly changing for most of us, you've got to understand that has meant high prices and few choices. Since you're going to need the internet for whatever you're trying to do, whether it's work, live streaming, or whatever the case may be, staying in touch with family, pretty much all entertainment, this is going to be a big worry for you. Um, you just got to brace for the worst when you go here. But if you find some pretty good fiber optics, this is going to be available in parts of the city where you can sign up for plans that are advertised as 50 megabytes per second. Not a lot. I've got 1,000 uh, gigs up and 1,000 gigs down. Or no, it's 1,000. Yeah, because I'm operating off of a terabyte, so it's 1,000 gigabytes up and 1,000 gigabytes down. Where we're looking at well over 1,000 megabytes per second that's being operated on, even though we're dealing with the glitches and everything that we have on the fiber optics that we're dealing with, we're still dealing with excessively high speed internet that has uh, no throttle, such as it is. Now, Is it going to give you what you're looking at all the time? Of course not. I don't get 5G all the time. Sometimes it lags, which is why I dropped the pixelation from 1080p down to 420p, just so that I can maintain more consistency with my connectivity. A good day might give you download speeds of up to around 18 to 25 megabytes per second, with upload speeds around 10 to 14 megabytes per second. It's not perfect, but it's good enough to get a video call through, maybe do a short round of streaming, run an online business. Yeah, you can do stuff like that. And the cost for this type of plan is going to be a flat fee, about $60 a month. This is going to be another area where being in a more modern building is going to pay off. In older buildings or further out away from the inner city, you might be stuck with a slower ADSL or have to rely on mobile data, which you would be way more expensively spending money on trying to get and it's the same heavy usage trying to hotspot 100 gigabytes a month from your cell phone to another device. So let's go ahead and talk about that mobile device then. You can use a prepaid SIM card, and those give you like 1,000 Djibouti francs, which is about $6 US. And the data packages are okay if you're not using your phone as the main internet source. If you got Wi-Fi at home, smaller top-ups is all you're going to need when you're out. So you can budget about $20 a month for your mobile plan, which covers your data and calling needs. So let's add it up. We have $140 for electricity and water, $60 for home internet, and $20 for a phone. That's a total monthly utility cost of like $220. It's a real expense, but it's under control. With housing and utilities covered, your total spending is like $1,320. You still have about $1,680 left in the budget, which means that you're on your way to proving that it is not just possible, but pretty comfortable to pull this off. Now, for what fuels the food, the cost of food in Djibouti is a tale of two cities. Most of these smaller countries have two styles of shopping. One style is shopping using local foods, and the other style is shopping imports. So your food bill is almost entirely dedicated to your decisions of choice. So let's start with supermarkets. Because if you walk into a modern supermarket, you're going to feel a wave of relief. You see some familiar French and European brands, Swiss chocolate, Italian pastas, American cereals, but that relief vanishes when you see the price tags. Because Djibouti imports a massive amount of its food, this estimate is going to be higher than 90% of what they import in. Anything that arrives in a shipping container has a serious markup. So a box of cereal might be double what you'd pay back in America. Block of cheddar cheese feels like a splurge. The first couple of weeks here, you're shopping in these stores is going to be a horrifying bill. You're burning through like $200 a week without even buying anything fancy. And it's going to be a totally unsustainable perspective, which brings you back to the second rule of making that $3,000 budget work. You have to embrace the local food economy. That means shifting your shopping to the local markets, like a huge Marche Muhammad Haribi. It's a little fruit and vegetable stall that's in your local neighborhood. The experience is going to be worlds apart from shopping at a Walmart, but it's a vibrant and a bit chaotic and takes a lot more effort. But a little French helps, even though many vendors know their numbers in English. Knowing French would help you with communication with them. So you have to check your produce yourself, and you have to get used to not everything being available all the time, which means you might have to buy certain things in a surplus. But the trade off is going to be huge because a kilo of potatoes that might be a few bucks at a supermarket is significantly cheaper at the market. French tomatoes, Fresh tomatoes, onions, other locals staples are incredibly affordable. And the biggest win? Seafood. Lots and lots of seafood. Right on the coast, fresh fish is everywhere and it's very cheap. So you can buy a whole fish from a fisherman at the port for a tiny fraction of what a frozen fillet costs in the store. If you develop a hybrid strategy, about 80% of groceries coming from the local market, and that would include all of your fresh produce, fish, chicken, bread, and everything else. And then the other 20%, you go to the supermarket for those few imported things that you really want, like good coffee, certain spices, or olive oil. Making this change, you can crush your food costs, maybe averaging weekly grocery bills for one person cooking most meals at home to be around $75. And that's a week. So over a month, your budget for groceries might be right around $300 a month. Now I know what you're saying. Shit, that's almost what we pay for in America. Sometimes $500 or $600 a month. But the difference between $200 a week, which is like $800 a month, versus $300 a month by spending 80% of your money on local foods, that's a $500 a month profit or benefit to change the way you shop. So that's going to give you a healthy diet with plenty of variety and even a few splurges. Now, what about eating out? Living well isn't about eating at home every single night. Djibouti has a surprisingly diverse restaurant scene. So, thanks to its international population, you can get anything from traditional Yemen fish and Ethiopian platters to Italian pizza and French bistro fare. Just like groceries, the cost is all over the place. You can hit a small local spot and get a massive plate of rice, veggies, and grilled fish for about $5 or $7. Lunch specials in the business district might be around $12 with a drink. On the other hand, if you go to a high-end restaurant at a big hotel, the prices are wild. Mid-range dinner for two can easily cross over $80, and a single cocktail at a nice hotel bar might set you back $15 to $20. So your budget allows for a mix of both. You can eat at a cheap local spot and a couple times a week, then 2 times a month, switch over to nicer dinners with friends, and once a month, you might splurge on a fancy meal. You set aside a separate budget of about $300 a month just for dining out, coffee and drinks and stuff to that effect. This lets you have a social life and enjoy the local scene without any guilt. So if you add up the $300 for groceries and $300 for eating out, that's a total of $600 a month for all the things food related. You're running on a total now of about $1,920 out of your $3,000 budget, and you've covered home, utilities, and the food. But you still got $1,000 left to play with. So picture a very reasonable life that is starting to get pretty clear. If you cover where you live and what you eat, how do you get around? This is going to be a compact, bustling, and sometimes chaotic city. So your choices here are going to be really impacting your budget and your daily life. This is going to be another choice between big convenience and big cost. The most expensive option, and the one that many Western expats default to, is owning a car. Gives you freedom and air conditioned comfort, but the cost is just not worth it on this particular type of budget. Because first, the car is going to be expensive to buy because if it's imported, you're going to have import taxes. A new car, a basic compact sedan, could still run you upward of $25,000. Then you have your insurance, maintenance with limited official dealers, and the price of fuel, which is not cheap at all. For a $3,000 a month budget, owning a car is not the ideal thing to do. It would torpedo the whole plan. So let's turn to what everyone else is using, which is the city running on a network of shared minibuses and taxis. Minibuses are the cheapest way to go, often less than 30 cents a ride. It's an adventure, but it can be hot, crowded, and tough to figure out when you first start doing it. The most practical middle ground is going to be The main way that you get around, which is a taxi. The official green taxis are everywhere. The one thing you have to know is that they don't use meters. Every single ride is negotiated. This is the intimidating experiences that you're going to have at first, but you get the hang of it. You have to know the going rate for your usual trips, and that is going to be key to agreeing on the prices. And you must beneficially agree on the price before you get in the car. A short trip across town can be 10 to 15 minutes and should be about 1,000 francs, which is about $5.60. But often you can negotiate for less, like 500 to 700 francs, depending on the day, the driver, and the time of day. The longer ride, like to the airport, might be closer to 1,800 francs, which is about $10. Fares also tend to go up after dark, specifically for the safety. So a daily routine doesn't involve a ton of travel, but you can also find yourself walking to local shops and cafes, which allows you to save a little bit of money on cabs and stuff. So for everything else, you might use a taxi. Probably take a few taxi rides a week on average. This is going to help to have small bills, be confident, and start the whole thing with a friendly salam alaikum, right? So what does that cost you? Well, if we track your spending, all your monthly budgets for taxi rides and everything like that might come out to be about $150, which gives you the freedom to get around whenever you need to without the massive headache and cost of owning a car. Back home, living on a taxi would be a luxury. Here in Djibouti, it's just a smart financial choice. So if we're adding that $150 transportation to the bill, that's going to bring your total amount to $2,070. You're still almost a full $1,000 away from the total $3,000 limit. And you've covered all the core pillars of life, and the reasonable parts of the goal have already been locked in. So if you're living well, you're going to love where you're at. Now, you build a foundation, you have a comfortable apartment powered with internet, the fridge is full of groceries, you're able to get around. All of it is handled for a little over $2,000 a month. And this is going to be where things get good because the leftover almost 2000 or sorry, $1,000 budget is going to be what separates survival from actual thriving. This is going to be where your money is used for your hobbies and your social life, ultimately your happiness. This is going to be what living well is going to be about. So, what does living well look like in Djibouti? Well, it's a mix of modern comforts and rugged adventures that you can't get anywhere else. You have your fitness first. Staying active is going to be important. There are going to be a few good gyms to go to in the city, mostly in the big hotels. They aren't cheap to buy local standards, but they're fit for the budget that we're having. So it'd be highly expensive for the locals, but being an expat is a no-brainer. A monthly membership with modern equipment, maybe a pool, might cost about $85 a month. Definitely three times more than what a Planet Fitness membership would cost in America. But it's a solid investment if you're trying to maintain your health. Next up is the social scene. As international hubs, Djibouti has surprisingly active social life that revolves around cafes, restaurants, and hotel bars. Now, this is where your dating out budget is going to come in handy for grabbing coffees with friends, which might be $4 to $5 at a nice cafe. Now, heads up, alcohol is going to be very expensive due to the taxes. So a mid-range bottle of wine can be well over $20. A beer at a bar will be several dollars, and it's sometimes going to be something that you have to watch, but it is still manageable to have one or two alcoholic beverages on your nights out. But the real magic of being here is going to be the experience that is totally unique to this particular part of the world because your extra income is going to be your ticket to adventure. This is going to be where you get to do things that most people only see on documentaries. On week one, you can get a group of friends together, charter a boat, head out to Malchu and Mascali Islands. You can go snorkeling or scuba diving in the Red Sea, which has incredible coral reefs. When you split the coast, a day trip like this can become totally affordable. If you're not split the coast, but split the cost when you're not paying for everybody by yourself, but you're splitting the cost where everybody on the trip pitches in like a Groupon, you find yourself having a very affordable trip. Or you could take a trip uh, inland to one of the most surreal landscapes on Earth, which is Lake Seal. It's a crater lake 10 times saltier than the ocean, and it's the lowest point in Africa. It's this stunning, otherworldly place not too many people know about. Renting a 4x4 with a driver for the day is the way to go. Tour guide. Again, with a group, it's a manageable cost for an unforgettable experience. Now, these trips are going to be what makes living here so incredible. If you budget for at least one of these bigger activities every month, you're setting aside about $250 a month just for this adventure fund. 1 month is like Lake Azil, and the next it might be a diving trip. Beyond the big adventures, there's everyday life costs, haircuts, books, new clothes, household cleaning supplies, and just random things that pop up. If you lump all that stuff together to be about $150 a month, this is going to be a general life category. So if we break down the discretionary spending, you're looking at $85 for the gym, $250 for wild travel, $150 for personal stuff. It's going to add up to $450. If you add that to the $2,070 you started with, you got about $255 for the month out of $3,000. So overall, with $1,100 for the house, $220 for the utilities, $600 for the groceries, $150 for the transportation, 485 for lifestyle choices, you have a very, very comfortable and fun and very adventurous life in Djibouti for $255 a month. Now, back to the original question. Can you live reasonably well in Djibouti on 3 grand? The answer is going to be clear. Absolutely yes. Not only is it possible, but it leaves you a pretty significant budget because you still have $445 aside. And that doesn't change the fact that you can still take a little bit of this money and put it towards some international health insurance, and you have some discretionary emergency money. You also can use some of this money to invest in some micro investment opportunities. And this surplus is going to be everything because it's not just leftover cash. It is your safety net, and it could cover emergency flights home. It could handle an unexpected medical bill, or it can be saved and invested in ways that you never thought possible. Over a year, that surplus adds up to more than $5,300. That's going to be the power of arbitrage, geo arbitrage, living somewhere cheaper while making more money than you need by moving from high cost environments to a place where you can strategically control your spending. You will be able to unlock a level of financial freedom that would be way harder to achieve in your hometown. Living a life of unique experiences, your standard of living is high, and you're still able to save a decent chunk of money. But this is going to be where the story gets even more interesting because the surplus isn't just for saving. In a frontier market like Djibouti, that surplus is capital. First and more important part is your investment strategy has nothing to do with Djibouti itself. It's going to be about using Djibouti as a low cost launch pad to speed up a global passive income strategy. Your monthly surplus of over $400 a month, plus any extra that you can earn online, goes straight into an investment account back in the United States. We've got real estate investment trusts that are allowing us to draw back 15% return on investment. If you have a diversified mix of low cost dividend paying ETFs and some global REITs, you're hitting the jackpot. The goal is going to be simple: build a stream of passive income that totally is separate from where you live. Every dollar that you save by living here is a dollar that you put to work in the global market. And the ultimate goal is for that passive income to grow until it completely covers the $2,555 monthly expenses that you have in this country. At that point, you've reached true financial independence because you're able to live in a country for free, funded entirely by your investments in one of the most strategic places on the planet. Second part of your strategy is more experimental. It's what I call micro scale local opportunities. And this isn't about starting a pharma company, but about seeing small scale needs on the ground. For example, logistics and shipping are the lifeblood of this country. Could a small service that helps new expats find reliable housing be valuable? Or curated tour services that offers unique trips for all of the foreign personnel here? These aren't get rich quick schemes. They're small, low capital ideas that you can test. Great thing about having your core expenses covered is that you have the time and a little bit of risk capital to explore these ideas without any pressure. And while it's true that Djibouti allows 100% foreign ownership in many sectors and lets you um, repatriate profits, it's not a total free for all country. Key strategic areas are restricted, and you absolutely have to navigate a complex bureaucracy and have trusted local partners. So, for now, if you're just going to be in a research phase, you have to remember that this is an opportunity that would be the next level in your adventure. This hybrid approach, building a solid global portfolio while exploring micro opportunities locally, is, in my observation, the smartest way for someone on a modest budget to tackle a frontier market. You protect yourself from local risks while using your boosts on the ground to spot unique ventures that no one else knows exist. So, there you have it, the complete transparent breakdown of what it takes and what it means to live in a $3,000 a month income in Djibouti City. We've shown that with a smart strategy that you can not only live comfortably, but also save a significant amount of money. This journey has been about more than just numbers. It's about challenging assumptions. Fulfilling life is possible outside of the conventional 9 to 5 path. Djibouti is a place of incredible contrast. It's a rugged and modern, challenging and rewarding place to be. It's a launch pad for lowering your cost of living, accelerating your financial goals, and having an adventure of a lifetime. The country's economic story is one of resilience. Its stability is underpinned by a currency, which is the Djiboutian franc, and that is pegged to the United States dollar. And institutions like the World Bank note its steady growth prospects despite regional risks. This provides a solid, if complex, backdrop for the entire experiment. So, I hope this has been a very valuable quantity of information for you. Uh, I'm going to be committed to sharing the reality of these types of journeys and the good and bad experiences from these influences, these ventures as time goes on. But I've got a question for you guys. What was the most surprising cost of the breakdown? Was it the rent? I don't think so. But that price for imported food, I thought that was expensive. Or was it the fact that taxis are affordable ways to live as opposed to being extremely expensive in America? I want you guys to let me know in the comment section because I read all of the comments and I'm curious to hear about what you guys have to say. And then finally, if you found all of this information or some of this information helpful, I want you guys to follow the next chapter, especially as I explore those local investments and build that passive income portfolio and put that information into the membership. Make sure that you guys take the opportunity to subscribe to the show, mash the like buttons, hit those notifications, because this is only the beginning. We have hundreds of countries around the world that we cover every Wednesday, and I want you guys to make sure that you take advantage of all the information that we have to offer. So that's all I got for you guys for tonight. I'm going to start by saying, ladies, as long as the situation doesn't make sense, I'm going to keep asking you ladies to make it make sense. So, ladies, please make it make sense. Fellas, I give you this information to make you guys higher value men, not just by improving your financial life, but also by improving your decision making skills. You have to prioritize the things that are inside of your control, change the things that you don't like, navigate around the things that are outside of your control. Ladies, while this is a male driven podcast from the male's perspective, you too can make yourselves higher value women by prioritizing your 20 and 30-year goals and reverse engineering what you got to do today to get to where you want to be at next year or the year after. Keeping your eyes and ears open for the right suitor with the right personality and characteristics, drive, ambition, dedication, admiration, and integrity to accomplish their own goals. See what kind of goals that person has and see how their goals match up with your goals. You want to make sure that you both have long-term satisfaction goals, not short-term gratification goals. If you do have long-term satisfaction goals, you can find that both of you can tackle each other's goals a lot faster. And I tell you guys on a regular basis that two people can make it to $1 million faster than one. You just both have to have the right drive and ambition. All right. We got a lot of stuff coming up for the rest of the week, so I want to make sure that you guys stay tuned. That's all I got for you guys for tonight. I want to thank you guys for coming to This and That. I'm your host, Xander, where we talk about this, that, and everything in between. And I will see you guys tomorrow.
Higher ground. Used to chase validation, now I validate myself. Building inner strength, putting doubt upon the shelf. No more unnecessary drama, no more wasted time. Climbing higher, constantly making my own climb. Standing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. My network is my net worth. Choose your company wise. Surround yourself with eagles, not with sheep in disguise. Every interaction is a reflection of my brand. Quality over quantity, that's my personal command. I'm not landing on higher ground where excellence is found. My potential knows no bounds, raising the bar, breaking ground. passion, my expectations are my compass, my respect is my shield. To mediocrity and chaos, I will never yield.